Lyra's heart beat loud in the Grand Korath Plaza. The marble floor felt cold under her sandals. Round her tall silver spires cast long shadows, and banners of crimson silk fluttered above. Thousands of Korathi stood in silent rows there, multifaceted eyes fixed on the raised platform. Even from a distance, Lyra could feel the weight of their gaze. But day was the day of unveiling, the most important day for every Korathi maiden. She stood behind a carved stone column, her fingers clutching the edge of a raised ledge. Her breath came in quick, shallow gasps. The ritual was simple in its instruction. Each maiden must bare her forearm before the crowd, attach the sacred sigil device, and reveal her family's true place in society. The sigil would glow in a color that people would respect or mock. There was no hiding, no second chances. Thoughts of her mother's soft voice floated through Lyra's mind. "Show your true light, my child. Our name will shine through you." But the memory brought little comfort. Her mother had passed when Lyra was very young. Now the entire weight of her family's future rested on Lyra's trembling shoulders. A hush fell as Eldervrax, tall and stern, climbed the few steps onto the platform. His robes were woven with threads of silver and gold, and his eyes shone. With authority, he lifted his staff, and a quiet energy pulsed through the air. The crowd stiffened. All waited for Lyra's entrance. Lyra swallowed hard. She wrapped her cloak tightly around her shoulders and took a trembling step forward. Each breath felt heavy. She could taste the dust of the plaza in her mouth. When she reached the platform's top, her knees shook so badly she felt she might collapse. Eldervrax's gaze bore into her, and the crowd fell completely silent. Eldervrax spoke in a clear, booming voice. "Lyra of House Kara, come forth." His words rolled across the plaza like distant thunder. Lyra's legs moved on their own. She drew closer until she stood directly under the crimson banner. The wind tugged at her hair, scattering dark strands. Across her pale face, she raised her hand and pushed aside her cloak, revealing her forearm. The smooth skin shone faintly in the morning light.
Alverde.
The ritual device hovered above her wrist, its claws ready to clamp. Every eye, every facet of every eye, focused on her bare flesh. Lyra's breath hitched. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The plaza's silence pressed against her chest. Lyra's mind raced with memories of childhood laughter, lessons on honor, and her mother's gentle encouragement. But as the device's claws clicked open, a cold dread filled her. She pictured the sigil burning onto her skin in a color she might despise. She pictured the gasps of the crowd if the light proved her unworthy. Lyra's heart thundered. Her hand shook so badly the device wavered in place. She glanced at Eldervrax, expecting anger. His eyes were stern, unmoving. She glanced at the crowd. She saw no compassion, only expectation. In that moment, something inside Lyra snapped. The fear of failure bowed to a fiercer need, the refusal to let a ritual define her worth. With both hands, she gripped the device's claws and pushed them away from her wrist. The mechanical hiss echoed painfully. Gasps and angry murmurs surged through the plaza. Eldervrax's lips tightened. The crowd's silence shattered into harsh whispers. "She defies our law," one cried. "Shame on her," another shouted. Lyra's cheeks burned. Her throat closed. She pressed trembling fingers to her forearm, silent tears slipping down her face. Eldervrax stepped forward, his staff glowing with punitive energy. Lyra held her ground, though her knees trembled. She glanced at the glowing tip of the staff, and then back at the thousands of eyes watching her fall. Shame rose in her chest so heavy she felt she could not breathe. "By our ancient code," Eldervrax intoned, "you bring dishonor upon your house." His staff flared, and a thin beam of red light traced across Lyra's bare skin. She gasped at the sting, but stood straight. When the light faded, a jagged scar glowed on her forearm. The crowd broke into cruel applause. Lyra felt her world tilt. The plaza spun around her. Every cheer felt like a blow. She nibbled her lip, blinking back tears. Her vision blurred as laughter and whispers echoed. She felt smaller than ever, yet more alive. In that pain, she knew something had changed. When Eldavrax turned away, the platform's silence returned. Lyra stood alone, marked and shamed. She wrapped her arm tightly in her cloak and took a slow, steadying breath. The plaza's lights dimmed in her vision, and her heart pounded fiercely as she descended the steps. Each footfall felt like stepping into a new world. The crowd's eyes followed her, feeding on her disgrace. Yet beneath her fear, a quiet truth glimmered. She had chosen herself over tradition. And in that choice, the seed of something powerful had been planted. After the ritual, the plaza emptied quickly. Lyra stood beneath the crimson banner, her cloak wrapped tight. The jagged scar on her forearm pulsed with heat and memory. Her chest tightened as she watched friends and neighbors hurry away. No one paused to meet her gaze. Each turned face felt like a fresh blade of shame. She closed her eyes, wishing the scar would fade, along with their harsh whispers. A guard approached, voice low. "Return to your quarters, maiden." His tone had no kindness. Lyra nodded and stepped down the platform's cold marble. Each step echoed. The scarred arm throbbed where the light had struck. She tried not to limp, but pain twisted her stride. By the time she reached the city gates, fear had settled deep in her bones. Her small house lay at the edge of the plaza. Smoke curled from its chimney, promising warmth. Inside, her father sat by the hearth with bowed head. He did not look up. When Lyra entered, air was thick with the smell of roasted root vegetables. The table held 2 bowls, steaming. Lyra's stomach twisted. She could not bear to sit. She left without a word, pushing through the door. Outside, evening shadows wrapped around narrow streets. Lanterns glowed with gentle light, but Lyra felt neither its warmth nor peace. She walked without direction, hands pressed against her chest. Every face she passed reminded her of the morning's shame. The children playing at the fountain ran when they saw her. Even the old beggar averted his eyes. Lyra's tears fell silently in the gloom. She found herself at the riverbank near the city wall. The water reflected the twin moons, soft silver. Paths on dark waves. Lyra knelt at the edge. She lifted her hand, watching the scar's red glow against the moon's reflection. A sob escaped her. "Why did I refuse?" she whispered. "Was I so proud that I chose pain?" Reflection rippled as tears fell into the river. A memory came to her. Her mother's laughter on a spring morning. They collected wild flowers, weaving them into crowns. Her mother said, "The world will judge, but joy lives inside you." Lyra's throat tightened. She pressed her fingers to her heart. At that moment, she decided she could not let the shame stay inside her. She would carry the pain, but not the silence. Lyra rose and retraced her steps to her home. The front door stood open. Inside, the hearth was cold and dark. No bowl sat on the table. A single candle flickered in the corner. She blew it out. Darkness swallowed the room. Lyra gathered a small cloth bag, placing her few possessions inside. She touched the vial of earth from her mother's burial, sight her only treasure. It gave her a steady courage. At dawn, Lyra packed her cloak and slipped quietly through the back door. The city gates lay ahead, tall and foreboding. Soldiers watched the road. Lyra's heart pounded, but she kept her head high. An eyebrow but said nothing. She passed without a word. Behind her, the city's walls looked taller, its towers sharper. Ahead, the path led into forests and the unknown. She walked until the sun rose high. Sweat dampened her hair and cloak. Beneath the trees, the air was cool and alive with birdsong. Lyra paused under a twin-trunked oak. Its bark was smooth and silver, its leaves shimmering. She pressed her hand against it, feeling the trees. "Strength, I will find a place where I belong," she promised. Her scar burned softly, but her resolve burned brighter as evening fell. Lyra reached a clearing where strange lights glowed on the ground. She recognized this place from old stories where travelers met humans. Beneath a sky of glittering stars, Lyra sank to her knees. She pressed the vial of earth to her lips and spoke into the night. "Mother, guide me." In the hush, she felt a gentle breeze. Somewhere beyond the trees, a new world waited. Lyra sat alone in the moonlit clearing, her back against a fallen log. The vial of her mother's earth rested in her palm, its contents warm like a heartbeat. She stared at the silver leaves overhead, each one trembling in the night breeze. Questions raced in her mind. Where would she go next? What life awaited beyond Korath's walls? Just as her courage wavered, a soft hum broke the silence. A slender ship, white and smooth as polished bone, descended quietly onto the landing. Pad at the clearing's edge, its engines whispered to a halt. Lyra's breath caught. She pressed herself against the log, heart pounding. She watched as a hatch slid open, revealing a human figure in a light blue uniform. He moved with careful steps, as if he were walking through a room full of fragile dreams. The human knelt and extended a small device to scan the ground. Lyra recognized its shape from old Korathi trade stories humans loved to record and measure everything. The human's eyes were soft gray pools that held no threat. He probed the soil gently, tipped the vial to collect a sample, and smiled to himself, marveling at the earth between his gloved fingers. His wonder felt honest, unlike the harsh judgment she'd known. When he straightened, he looked directly, toward Lyra's hiding place. She froze. Panic flared in her chest. Shame rose again like a tide, urging her to flee. Yet the human did not shout or draw a weapon. Instead, he smiled kindly and raised a gloved hand in greeting. "Hello?" he said in a quiet voice that made Lyra's name whisper in her mind. "I'm Marcus. Are you, Korathi?" Lyra's legs trembled as she stepped into view. She wrapped her cloak tighter around her shoulders, hiding the glowing scar. "Yes," she managed, voice barely more than a sigh. "I am Lyra." Her throat felt dry. She expected startled fear or anger in his gaze. Instead, Marcus's gray eyes softened. He tucked the vial into a belt pouch and bowed slightly. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lyra. I did not mean to startle you." Lyra blinked at his gentle tone. No one on Korath ever spoke like this. Other humans she'd heard about were loud, brusque, always in a hurry. But Marcus moved slowly, with careful respect. He offered her the vial. "I found some of your planet's soil. Would you help me understand it?" His voice held no command, only invitation. She hesitated, then took the vial. The earth inside felt real and familiar, comforting against her palm. "Why would you ask me?" she whispered. "I am no scholar. I am just a girl." Heat flushed her cheeks. The scar burned beneath her cloak, and she wished he could not see it. Marcus shook his head. "You carry your world in your hands," he said softly. "That matters more than any title or ritual. You know this land in ways I never could." He stepped closer, leaving space for her to move away if she wished. His calm presence felt like a lifeline. Lyra held her breath, then nodded. Together they walked to a flat stone slab beside the ship. Marcus produced small tools, magnifier, brushes, vials, and Lyra assisted. She had studied the plants and soils as a child, learning each texture and color. As she pointed out patterns in the soil's grain, Marcus listened intently, his eyes bright with curiosity. He asked gentle questions, and she answered, voice growing steadier with each word. When dawn's first light broke, the sky blushed pink. Lyra realized that she had not tasted fear since stepping into the clearing. Instead, she felt something new, hope. She watched Marcus label his samples with careful handwriting and pack them away, offered her a small metal cup of water and a piece of dried fruit. She accepted gratefully, her hands no longer shaking. As the suns climbed higher, Lyra sat on a moss-covered stone beside Marcus. He pointed to a nearby grove of glowing mushrooms and asked if they were edible. Lyra laughed, a soft sound she almost forgot she possessed, shook her head. "They are poisonous, but beautiful at night," she said. Marcus nodded thoughtfully and sketched the mushrooms in a small notebook. For the first time since her ritual, Lyra saw herself reflected in another's eyes, not as a source of shame, but as someone valued. She realized that every scar, every fear had brought her here, to this human who looked at her with gentle kindness. In that moment, she understood that her true unveiling was not in a public plaza, but in this quiet clearing under the stars. Lyra smiled at Marcus. "Thank you for asking me," she said simply. Marcus returned her smile, and Lyra felt the clearing shadows grow softer. The scar on her arm glowed faintly beneath her sleeve, but inside her heart, a brighter light, shone one that no rule could ever dim. Early morning light filtered through the trees as Lyra and Marcus set out beyond the clearing. Soft mist drifted between silver trunks, and the ground glowed faintly with bioluminescent moss. Marcus carried his tools in a satchel slung over one shoulder, while Lyra walked beside him, her cloak drawn back to cool her scar. With each step, she felt the knot of shame loosen in her chest. They reached a grove of towering flowers, whose petals shimmered like molten glass. Marcus knelt to examine them, carefully brushing dew from a petal's edge. "These are called star blossoms," Lyra explained. "They bloom only once every cycle of our twin moons." She told him how the Korathi believed star blossoms carried wishes to the heavens. Marcus listened with rapt attention, eyes soft and curious. Lyra realized her voice no longer trembled. As Marcus sketched the flowers, Lyra watched his gentle strokes. He paused, looking up at her with a question in his gaze. "Why did you run from your ritual?" he asked quietly. Lyra's breath caught. She pressed her shawl over her scar, cheeks reddening. For a moment, she hesitated to speak the truth of her shame. Then she realized Marcus already saw more than her scar. He saw her courage. "I could not let that mark tell my story," Lyra said at last. "I'd felt like my worth belonged to ancient rules, not to me." Her voice sounded small in the hush of the grove, yet firm in its honesty. Marcus nodded, folding his sketchbook closed. He reached out, placing a gloved hand over hers. "Your story is yours alone," he said. "I want to know every part." Of it, they walked on, sharing memories. Lyra spoke of childhood lessons in her mother's garden. Marcus told her of his home planet's green fields and blue seas, places he had never visited but only read about. As they talked, Lyra felt a warmth spread through her, hope, friendship, perhaps something more. She glanced at her scar. It no longer burned with pain but glowed like a silent promise. Suddenly, the forest's birdsong fell silent. Marcus stiffened and held up a hand. From the path ahead, the clicking march of souls approached. Lyra's heart hammered. She recognized the echo of Korathi patrol boots, the rigid rhythm of soldiers enforcing order. Fear clawed at her throat. She glanced at Marcus, whose gray eyes mirrored her alarm yet held steady calm. Without a word, Marcus guided Lyra behind a fallen log. He crouched low, gently pressing on her shoulder. "Stay silent," he whispered. Lyra pulled her cloak hood over her head and pressed herself flat against the mossy wood. Through the ferns, she saw 3 patrol guards advance, their staves crackling with permission to harm. The first guard pointed and hissed, their movement. Lyra's breath hitched, hot tears stinging her eyes. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for discovery and punishment. But then Marcus stepped forward, hands raised. "I am Marcus of the Exploration Guild," he called out in Korathi dialect, voice clear and firm. "This maiden is with me. I mean no harm." The soldiers halted, their staves glowing brighter in warning. Lyra peeked through the leaves. Marcus stood tall beside her hiding place, cloak catching the dawn light. The lead guard's mandibles clicked in challenge. Marcus met his gaze without fear. Lyra realized then that the danger she feared most, shame and punishment, had found her again. Yet beside this human who spoke for her, she felt a spark of courage. As the soldiers deliberated, Lyra's heart pounded between fear and hope. She pressed a hand to her scar, recalling the promise in Marcus's gentle look. Whatever happened next, she knew she would no longer face disgrace alone. The 3 Korathi guards advanced slowly, their staves humming with warning energy. Marcus stood before them, shoulders squared, voice calm but firm. "We are on a peaceful mission," he said in the clear, resonant dialect of Korath. "Lyra is guiding me through these woods. Please let us continue." The lead guard clicked his mandibles in suspicion. "You claim protection over a traitor to our laws," he hissed. "She refused her ritual and bears the mark of shame." He raised his staff, its tip glowing red. Lyra's scar pulsed under her cloak. Fear pressed in on her, but Marcus did not waver. "I respect your customs," Marcus replied. "But I also believe in choice and honor through deeds, not coercion. Lyra has been brave today. I ask that you allow us to pass." The guard's eyes flashed. He tapped his staff twice. A sharp warning. The forest fell silent. Only the beating of Lyra's heart filled her ears. She pressed a hand against Marcus's arm. His steady presence lent her courage. After a long moment, the lead guard lowered his staff. "Very well," he said grudgingly. "But know this. If you bring her back after sunset, you will answer to the elders." He waved his colleagues forward. They melted back into the trees, leaving Marcus and Lyra alone in the cool hush. Lyra exhaled, relief washing over her like warm water. She unclenched her fists and let her cloak fall. Marcus turned to her, concern in his gentle gaze. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Thank you for standing up for me." Marcus offered a small smile. "I would do the same for anyone I care about." They continued along a narrow path carpeted with soft green moss. Birdsong returned, timid at first, then grew bolder. Lyra felt the tension in her chest ease with each step. She realized that, for the first time, she was moving forward by choice, not by the weight of tradition. Soon, they reached a clearing where a crystal spring bubbled over smooth stones. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dancing. On the water's surface, Lyra knelt beside the spring, cupped her hands, and drank deeply. The water was cool and pure, washing away the last traces of her fear. Marcus watched her, then knelt too. He filled a flask and offered it to Lyra. She accepted, meeting his eyes. "This land has so much to teach," she said softly. "I never saw it before, trapped by shame and fear." Marcus nodded. "Every land, like every person, has treasures and scars. Both deserve respect." His words felt like a promise. They filled their flasks and sat on a nearby rock. Lyra unwrapped her cloak, revealing her forearm. The jagged scar was faint in the bright sunlight, its red glow tempered. She traced its line with a fingertip, recalling the ritual's sting. "I used to believe that this scar made me worthless," she said, voice quiet. "But now I see it. It's part of my story. Painful part, yes, but a part I overcame." Marcus reached out, gently covering her scar with his gloved hand. "It shows your strength," he said. "You chose your own path." Lyra's chest warmed. She smiled, a soft curve of hope blossoming in her heart. She stood and extended her hand to Marcus. He took it, and together they rose as they walked. Back toward the path, the forest seemed to welcome them. Flowers leaned forward as if to listen to their footsteps. Leaves whispered secrets overhead. Lyra felt alive in a way she never had before. By midday, they emerged at the edge of a small human outpost, a camp of white tents and quiet activity. Humans in blue uniforms moved among instruments and data pads. Marcus greeted them, and the others welcomed Lyra with respectful nods. One human, a woman with bright eyes, approached Lyra. "I've heard much about you," she said kindly. "Marcus speaks of your courage and wisdom." Oh, Lyra's cheeks flushed. She realized that here her worth was measured by her heart, not a ritual. The woman offered Lyra a fresh cloak embroidered with gentle silver lines. "A gift from your new friends," she said. Lyra accepted with trembling gratitude. She enveloped herself in the soft fabric, feeling its warmth surround her like a protective embrace. That evening, Lyra stood beside Marcus as the sun dipped below the horizon. The twin moons rose, painting the sky in violet and gold. She looked down at her scar, hidden now beneath the new cloak. But beneath it, she felt only pride and peace. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "You will always have a home here," he said. Lyra turned to him, eyes shining. "And you will have one with me," she replied. Under the twin moons, Lyra discovered that true honor was not granted by ancient laws, but earned through compassion and choice.
Ow.
In the gentle look of one human, she found her own light danned with it, a new beginning. Lyra woke before dawn in the human camp. The air was cool, and the tents glowed softly under the twin moons. She slipped from her borrowed cloak and traced her scar by lantern light. Instead of pain, she felt strength pulsing through her arm. Today she would join Marcus and the humans on a journey deeper into the forest. Her heart fluttered with both excitement and nervousness. She found Marcus by a map table outside a large white tent. He looked up and smiled. "Ready for today's trek?" he asked. Lyra nodded, smoothing her cloak. Although her voice still trembled, she answered with growing confidence. "Yes, I want to help you learn about this land." Marcus gently rolled up the map and handed her a compass. "Your guidance means everything," he said. Lyra felt her chest swell with pride. They set off along a narrow trail lined with silver-leafed bushes. Marcus carried a data pad. Lyra held the compass and a small notebook. As they walked, birds with tricolored feathers called overhead. Lyra identified each one by name and habit. Marcus recorded every detail, asking questions about the birds' songs and the bush's healing properties. Lyra's explanations flowed easily now. With each answer, she felt her shame fall further behind. Midway through their trek, they reached a clearing of ancient stone ruins. The air hummed with quiet energy. Lyra paused at the edge, awe in her gray eyes. "These stones belonged to our first civilization," she said softly. "They built temples here to honor the stars." Marcus knelt to examine the carvings. Lyra watched his gentle curiosity and felt a warm glow in her chest. She realized that together they honored both past and present. Suddenly, a distant horn sounded. The crisp note echoed through the trees. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She recognized it as the Korathi, recall horn summoning her back for judgment. Fear seized her chest. Marcus noticed her sudden stillness. "What is it?" he asked. Lyra's voice trembled. "They want me back. The horn is a call to return." Marcus stood, eyes steady with resolve. "Then we will go together." They hurried back toward the camp. The horn sounded again, urgent. Lyra's pace quickened, each step echoing her trepidation. Marcus kept pace, offering calm words. At the camp's entrance, 2 Korathi envoys waited, their staves glowing with formal authority. One envoy, stern-faced, spoke. "Lyra of House Kara, you must return with us. The elders demand your presence." Lyra's landed like heavy stones. Lyra's stomach twisted with fear and anger. She looked at Marcus. In his gentle gaze, she found courage. "I will go," she said in a clear voice. She stepped forward, shoulders straight. The envoy nodded curtly. "You will face your consequences." Lyra felt her throat tighten, but she did not look away. Marcus bowed his head respectfully. "We'll accompany her," he said. Murmurs rose among the envoys. The lead envoy clicked his mandibles. "A human may not interfere," he snapped. Marcus raised his hands in peace. "I ask only to support my guide," he replied calmly. Lyra stood beside him, heart pounding. The envoys exchanged hesitant glances, then lowered their staves. "Then so be it," the lead envoy said, voice reluctant. Together, Lyra and Marcus followed the envoys through the forest path toward the city. Each step carried Lyra closer to a final judgment she feared, yet with Marcus at her side, her resolve held firm. The trees seemed to whisper encouragement as moonlight filtered through their branches. Lyra pressed her hand against Marcus's. In his steady grip, she found the strength to face whatever awaited in Korath's halls. Whatever happened next, she knew she would not stand alone. Lyra's heart pounded as she approached the towering gates of Korath's Hall of Elders. The marble entrance gleamed under the twin suns of early morning. Guards in silver armor stepped aside, and the heavy doors groaned open. Marcus stood beside her, gloved hands still holding hers. Each breath Lyra took felt brimming with fear, but also with a fierce new strength. Inside, the hall was vast and silent. Pillars carved with ancient runes reached toward a vaulted ceiling. At the far end, on a raised dais, sat 5 elders draped in robes of midnight blue and gold. Their eyes were hard and cold. Lyra's blood ran chill. She pressed closer to Marcus, feeling his steady presence. Elder Vrax rose and fixed Lyra with a stern gaze. His staff's crystal tip glowed faintly. "Lyra of House Kara," he intoned, voice echoing. "You defied our sacred ritual, escaped our judgment, and consorted with a human. How do you answer these transgressions?" Lyra swallowed hard. The scar on her arm throbbed like a living thing. She straightened her shoulders and let Marcus gently release her hand so she could speak alone. "I answer with truth," she said, voice clear though, trembling. "I refuse the ritual because I believe that honor comes from choice, not force. I fled because I could not bear to be valued only by a mark on my skin. I sought a life where my worth is my actions and my heart." A murmur rippled through the hall. Elder Vrax's brow furrowed. "Your words are bold," he said, "but they challenge our oldest traditions. Do you claim that our laws are wrong?" Lyra's throat tightened, but she met his gaze. "I claim only that compassion and understanding are as important as law. Marcus saw me not as a ceremony's failure, but as a guide, a teacher, and a friend. If I had stayed, I would have lived as a symbol of shame. There, I would have lost myself." Silence pressed the hall. The other elders exchanged glances. One, a woman whose silver hair gleamed like starlight, leaned forward. "You speak of choice, yet you abandon your family and your duties. That your definition of honor?" Lyra felt her heart quiver, remembering her father's bowed head, her empty home. Tears pricked her eyes. "I did not abandon them," she said softly. "I left to find my own path, so I could return stronger. I carry my family's name with me every step. I carry my mother's faith and my own strength." Her voice gained power. "I believed that if tradition forces shame, then tradition must change." Marcus stepped forward and bowed deeply, his voice respectful. "Honored elders, I am Marcus of the Exploration Guild. I have traveled to many worlds, but never have I met a heart so generous as Lyra's. She taught me about her land's wonders and its people's dreams. I stand by her belief that compassion must guide us even as law binds us." As the elders studied Marcus, then Elder Vrax's eyes softened. Just a fraction. He turned to the woman with starlit hair. "What say you?" he asked. The silver-haired elder rose and walked down the steps toward Lyra. She reached out a graceful hand. "Lyra of House Kara," she said, voice warm, "you have spoken with courage and honesty. You have shown us that the heart can be as wise as any law. If your actions have brought understanding between our people and humans, then perhaps shame need not define honor." Lyra's breath caught. She bowed deeply. "I only wish to serve my people and to honor our world in kindness." The elder placed a hand over Lyra's scar. The glowing red softened, becoming a gentle amber. "Your scar remains," the elder said, "but it shall be known as a mark of bravery, not disgrace." She raised her voice so all could hear. "Let it be declared that, from this day forth, no Korathi maiden shall bear shame for refusal of ritual under compassionate reasons. Let our laws evolve with our hearts." A chorus of gasps and soft exclamations filled the hall. Elder Vrax nodded slowly. "So be it." He tapped his staff, and the scar's light faded to a warm glow. The other elders signaled their agreement. Robes rustling as they rose, Marcus extended his hand to Lyra. She took it, tears of relief and joy shining in her eyes. They turned to face the elders together. The hall, once cold and punishing, now felt alive with newfound hope. As they walked back through the open doors, sunlight spilled over the plaza. Korathi and humans waiting outside watched in respectful silence. Lyra raised her chin, cloaked in dignity. Marcus smiled at her with pride. In that moment, Lyra realized that her true unveiling had come not through forced ritual, but through honest words and courageous heart. The plaza echoed with soft applause, no longer of mockery, but of admiration. With Marcus by her side and the blessing of her people, Lyra stepped into a future defined by choice, compassion, and unity.